simply saying, I'll talk about it later. I'll talk about it later. I'll talk about it later. Now later has come. Wouldn't it be appropriate in some settings? Notice the hedge there. In some settings, if you have a child that has a particular passion that you know is not met by the school district or the school system, and they've already discovered that passion, and you're, working in conjunction with that kid on that passion, wouldn't it be appropriate if you were to school them with regards to their education, i.e., homeschool, wink, wink? This whole video has to do with going to a building school, get on school bus, have backpack, make sure you have lunch, go to classes, bell ring, 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 in class, sit down, shut up, let's go. I don't even think that's a very good model of school. I could be wrong, but actually you're proving me right, because there's more and more people after the COVID dilemma who have opted to say, you know what? This whole home education thing, this whole varied and multiple learning, this whole increasing the passions and abilities and capacities of kids while they're young in the context of their home, free from the intimidation of somebody having zips, bang bangs. Can I say guns? Yeah, I just said guns. At school, and there's being some horrific thing that happens, which you never know, especially in metro public schools. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at. It can happen anywhere. We've been shocked when there are these shootings that take place. So sending them off to an environment, you don't know what it is that they're necessarily being taught there. Some of the things that you know that they're being taught there are inappropriate. Some of the environment, some of the context. So free of all of those different things, wouldn't it be better to help a child learn and work in conjunction with their passions? They're actually concerned about learning and want to learn and want to be a part of the solution. Maybe homeschooling is the answer for you. Let me go a step farther. Maybe classical education is the step for you.
But do the schools of today help our children find and
No, they
develop
don't.
their passion? There seems to be no room in the current education system for the most important questions in a child's life.
Which
What
is?
am I good at? What do I want to do in life?
Those are very important questions. And I know that, a lot of times we say, well, they're just kids, 15, 16, 17. I mean, we didn't know what we wanted to do when we were that age. And so it's okay that they don't know what they want to do at that age. And we have to be very dangerous. We have to be very careful that we don't fall into a danger zone with that kind of thinking. Right. Kids may change their passions, and they may change their pursuits, and they may change their wardrobe or their look, or they're trying to mimic certain things. They may be flexible to a certain degree, and I'm not talking about men becoming women, women becoming men. I'm not to that extreme. That's extreme delusion right there. But what I am talking about is, they may be passionate about the Glee Club. They may like a girl who plays chess, and so they'll be in the chess club. Or they may like somebody in, band, and so they start to get in band. They start to really enjoy playing music, and then that flourishes and becomes something else. But what I am saying is, we have delayed the idea of maturity in our culture. We've delayed it and said, well, you don't have to figure out what it is that you want to do. Just kind of meander around. And because we've delayed adolescence and just pushed it back and pushed it back and pushed it back, we've said you don't really need to grow up during your high school years. You don't need to grow up during your college years. You don't need to grow up into your young adult. After all, you're still figuring this thing out. You're still figuring out your passions. You're doing what you don't want to do so that you can someday do what you want to do. And you're just sort of just going through the system. You're going through, you're figuring out what you really want to invest yourself in, and what you're going to be satisfied, even if that's not something that's a doctor or a lawyer, you're making a lot of money, you're going to be satisfied doing that thing because you love that thing. And even if it pays less and your standard of living is lower than other people's standard of living, you're satisfied with that because you're satisfied with yourself and what it is that you're doing and how God has created you. That's fine. But let's be very careful that we don't get ourselves into the place where we just say, well, you don't have to figure it out. We're just going to delay adolescence, 30 years old, 40 years old, you may at some point need to figure it out. No, folks need to start getting married. They need to have some babies. We're about to go off the cliff in terms of our population, but that's another episode for another day. That's why I need a 2-hour show.
How do I fit into this world? The system doesn't seem to care. There are so many greatly talented people who failed in the traditional school system.
That's amazing. I didn't know that Winston Churchill had a C average in school. What is it? A students teach B students to work for C students. You better watch some of those C students. You better watch some of those C students. I was a C student in seminary. You better watch us. I'm just simply saying, I heard what the professor was saying up at the front of the room. But I think by the time I had graduated from college and got to seminary, that style of learning, that was not appropriate for me anymore. And I think that's why I struggled when I was in seminary, at least my first year.